If you're thinking about selling your home here in the Kansas City metro, there's a good chance you've wondered, am I going to get hit with a big tax bill when I sell? Capital gains feels confusing, and a lot of homeowners here delay selling simply because they're not sure what's taxable and what isn't. In this video, you're in the right place if you want to be clear about the big picture and understanding how capital gains generally works when you sell your home in the Kansas City metro. I'm LETTIANN Sutherland, broker-owner of LETTIANN & Associates Real Estate Services here in the Kansas City metro, serving both sides of the state line in Kansas and Missouri. I help homeowners across Kansas City sell with confidence, and part of that is knowing what questions to ask about taxes and capital gains when you sell your home. In this video, you'll learn the basics of what capital gains are, what can affect whether you might owe anything when you sell, and the types of professionals you'll want on your team before you make big decisions. Let's start with the big picture. When people talk about capital gains on their home sale, they're usually talking about the difference between what you paid for your home, plus certain allowable costs and improvements, and what you sell it for. If the number is positive, that's your gain. The rules about whether the gain is taxable can depend on things like how long have you lived there, whether it's your primary residence, and your overall financial situation. That's true here in the Kansas City area, just like it is around the rest of the country. But your personal situation will always matter. One of the most important things for you as a Kansas City homeowner is understanding the difference between a primary residence and other types of property. If you live in the home you're selling, the way capital gains might apply to you can be very different than if it's a rental or a flip or even a second home. That's why I always encourage you to be very clear with your tax professional about how you've used the property and for how long. The more accurate the picture is, the better guidance you'll get. Another key point is your cost basis, which is a fancy way of saying what you actually have in the property. It's not just what you originally paid for your home. It can also include certain closing costs when you bought it, as well as some of the major improvements you've made over the years. Think big, permanent upgrades, not just decor. Keeping good records of your major projects can really help your tax professional understand your true numbers when it comes time to sell. Because Kansas City straddles both Kansas and Missouri, another layer for you to be aware of is that you may have different state-level tax considerations depending upon which side of the state line you are on. That's why it's so important to work with someone who understands not just the federal rules, but also the state rules you're in, whether your home is in Kansas City, Missouri, or Overland Park, Kansas, or another suburb here in the metro. I don't give tax advice, but I do help you ask the right questions so your CPA or tax advisor can give you the best answers for your situation. Timing can also matter when it comes to selling your home. How long have you lived there? How long have you owned the property can influence the capital gains and how they're treated. Maybe you thought about selling, but wondered if it would make sense to wait a little bit longer, or if moving your timeline up could actually help you. Those are smart questions to raise with your tax professional, and they're exactly the kinds of questions we can talk through together as we plan your sale strategy. Here's the big takeaway I want you to have. You don't need to become a tax expert to make a good decision about selling your home, but you do want a clear team and a clear plan. Your real estate strategy and your tax strategy should work together. When we sit down to talk about selling your home, I'll walk you through an estimated net proceeds from a real estate standpoint, and then you can share those numbers with your CPA or tax advisor to understand how capital gains might apply in your situation. So if you're thinking about selling your home anywhere in the Kansas City area and you're unsure how capital gains could play into your decision, let's talk. I'm LETTIANN Sutherland with LETTIANN & Associates Real Estate Services here in the Kansas City metro, serving both sides of the state line in Kansas and Missouri. Please visit LETTIANN.com and use the contact form to reach out. Tell me a little bit about your home and your timeline, and I'll help you map out the selling options so you can head into that tax conversation feeling prepared and confident.